Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Dale Barzy. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. Today, it is my very great pleasure to welcome Laura Bouchard Chung. Laura is a critical care nurse. She's a legal nurse consultant. She's a falls expert and a rapid response team nurse. So, welcome, Laura.
Oh, thank you so much, Jill, for having me. It's a pleasure to talk with you.
It is my pleasure to have you. But tell me, first of all, why are you a nurse? What brought you here?
So I knew in high school I wanted to do something to help people. I actually thought about social work first, but then I actually had a lot of aunts that were nurses in my family. And I saw that they were in all different aspects. So one was a hospice nurse, one was a school nurse, one was a CNO of a hospital. So I thought that nursing just had unlimited possibilities and unlimited avenues.
Mhm.
So I decided to pursue that. And I actually graduated and was working as a nurse at age 21.
That's awesome because many of us come into the profession not realizing just how much it has to offer. We know basic things like you can work anywhere and you'll always have a job. But as for knowing just how vast it is, we have no idea for quite some time. So, with all of these people in your family who were nurses, you must have formed some idea of what it would be like for you. So, when you got to be a nurse, what did you think of it? Did it fit your idea?
I guess in some ways, I think no one can ever prepare you for sometimes how bone tiring, exhausting nursing can be.
Mhm.
Um, the long shifts, just the emotional component. I don't think anyone can prepare you for that. It's kind of like having a baby. You don't really
Yeah.
know until you're in it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that my thought of nursing having so many different avenues held true. So there's just so many different career aspects. There's so many different paths you can take. And even today, I love talking to other nurses and I'm always surprised, like, oh, you do this, or there's so many different things that I've never even heard of. Corrections, IT. I mean, there's just so many
Yeah.
different job
Yeah.
opportunities. So I love hearing about all of them. I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, me too, because you know what I think, Laura, I honestly think that even though I think that I know, it turns out I don't know. There's
Yep.
more. There's still more. There's still more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you have worked in many different areas. What made you settle on ICU?
So I started in med-surg. I was at a really big teaching hospital, and that was a great starting point for me. I did an internship as a student nurse, and then I worked on that actual floor. I was hired to work there after I graduated. But there was something about ICU that really drew me. Um, I like to do everything myself. I don't like delegating because I don't know if it's going to get done. So for me, being on the floors, it was tough to delegate. Whereas in ICU, I'm in charge. I'm doing everything.
It's
Like this is
you.
my room. Everything gets done by me. So I actually like that. And I think a lot of ICU nurses are kind of like that, like type A, like they want to do everything themselves. So that's really what drew me to ICU. And obviously I love it because I've been in ICU, I don't know, 20 plus years, I think 22 years or so. So that's really where I found my niche. And then I do rapid response as well, which is really fun. And I get to talk with all the floor nurses and be a resource to them. And that kind of gets me back to my roots. That's where I started on the floors. And I know just how challenging they can be.
Yeah.
So I love being available to be a resource to them.
Yeah. 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 And as a rapid response person, it's like sort of like being in the ER because you never know what's coming at you right now.
It's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
every day is different. There's always something exciting happening that hopefully
Yes.
I can help with. So, and it's nice
Yeah.
that I get to do ICU and then I get to do rapid response. So it's the perfect combo for me. I wouldn't want
Hmm.
to do just one of those. So I love the combination.
So do you do both of those in the same facility?
I do. Yeah, it's neat. We have a core group of ICU nurses that rotate and do rapid response.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's really a nice relationship with the floors because when I go, say I'm working as an ICU nurse that day and I go to transfer my patient out and I call them to give a report and they're like, oh, Laura, it's the rapid response nurse.
Hmm.
Um, and even my patients love it because one of our duties as rapid response is we round on all the patients that have transferred out of ICU to see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll transfer them out one day and then maybe I'm back the next day and I can go check on them. And I think the families of the patients really appreciate that as well. And I always say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm just here to lay eyes on you, see how you're doing. And if the floor nurses need me help, they can always get a hold of us
Yeah.
24/7. So it's just a
Yeah.
really nice service.
Yeah. And that gives both the nurse, the patient, the family that feeling of continuity.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that you haven't just discharged them to someplace else and
Yeah. The warm
yeah,
handoff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've done all of this. Um, I saw one thing that intrigued me about you. You said that you've developed a 22-point falls analysis. Tell me about that. First of all, why is falls your big thing?
Um, well, I think as a new nurse, I had a patient fall once, and it just drove me crazy that it happened on my shift. It happened to me. I think it's, probably happened to most nurses where they've had a
Mhm.
patient fall, and you just always go back and think, did I do everything that I should have done? Was there something different that I could have changed? Why did this happen? So I actually, one of my first legal nurse cases was a fall case. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is something that I am really passionate about. I'm passionate about reducing falls in the hospital, but then outside of the hospital, with slip and fall cases, as they're commonly called, that's something that I really love to help with too. I love to help attorneys with those. There's all different types of falls, slip and fall, industrial or work falls,
Mhm.
hospital falls. So I kind of developed this tool that would help the attorneys drill down into the fall and investigate exactly what happened. Um, and it's really good for nurses as well because sometimes falls happen and the nurse did absolutely everything that he or she could to prevent the fall. So the patient had a chair alarm, a bed alarm, non-skid slippers, a fall risk wristband, were on a
Mhm.
toileting schedule. They did all these measures, but the patient still fell. And using this fall tool, I can say, hey, it wasn't the nurse's fault. They did everything they could to prevent this fall. So it really helps from the defense perspective as well.
Awesome, awesome. Maybe you need to license that. You need to license that. I can see that. I can see that. So, having done all of this though, and 20 plus years as a nurse, what would you like to see change?
Um, well, I work in California, and I would say that California has a lot of really pro-nurse aspects to it.
Yeah.
And I would like everyone to experience that. I'm not saying that nursing out here is perfect, it's not. But especially where I work, I think that the hospital really does a lot of things to help nurses. So some of the things that I would love to see nationwide, worldwide, um, we have a lift team that comes and helps us turn our patients every 2 hours. So they round on the even hours in our unit. They're there to assist us. They can help us get patients out of bed. They're very highly trained. And they really save our backs, save us from injuries. And then we have very strict staffing ratios in California. Um, so when I'm in ICU, I have two patients. There's no slippery slope. They're not going to have me watch another patient
Yeah.
or give me a third. Um, they're very good about those ratios out on the floor as well, depending on what type of floor it is.
Yeah.
And then the charge nurse does not have an assignment because I know when I worked on the East Coast, I always had an
Yeah.
assignment when I was in charge. So that
Hmm.
really allows the charge nurse to focus on, patient and family issues, rounding with the interdisciplinary team, being a
Yeah.
resource to the nurses. So that's, a huge benefit. And I think also by having lift team, it allows nurses to stay at the bedside longer. I've been at the bedside 24 plus years, knock on wood, that I've been able to do it. But I really do think that by having these resources available to us, we also have lifts in the ceiling. We have a patient lifting system. I
Mm.
think it prevents a lot of injuries for nurses and it allows them to stay at the bedside longer, which, we know there's a shortage, especially at the bedside, and it's just going to continue to grow. So
Yeah.
I think developing those measures nationwide would be amazing for nursing.
It would be. It would be. And I have had occasion to briefly interact with the healthcare system in California. And I must say that as a I was not the patient, but still, I part of the consumer, um, it was very reassuring. It was very reassuring as a consumer to see these things. I don't know if every consumer said, but I noticed it as because I'm a nurse, I guess, and it made
Of
me
course.
feel quite reassured that this was happening. Just because I guess I know it doesn't happen everywhere else.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't. So, what did you see? You became a legal nurse consultant. Were you always interested in the legal aspect of it?
I was. As part of our bachelor program, we had to take a legal aspects of nursing training. It was a
Mhm.
semester long course,
Yeah.
and I just found it so fascinating. So I had always been interested in legal nurse consulting, but I was kind of busy with kids and doing other projects,
Yeah.
nursing related at the hospital. So I had kind of put it off. And then around 2020, I decided I really needed to pursue it or I was going to regret not doing it because it had been
Yeah.
on my mind for so long. And so my husband agreed to. He was very supportive and he said, yeah, he said, you need to take the training, just go for it. So I had his support, I had my parents' support, and I don't regret it for a second. I'm so glad I did pursue it.
And I'm happy that I'm talking to you. You're doing that and you're at the bedside. And what that says to me, or should say to us as nurses, is with all that is there, you do not have to leave the bedside to pursue something else. You can do both. I mean, not that you have to stay at the bedside if you don't want to, but if you want to pursue something else, you don't have to leave. Nursing is so flexible,
Yeah.
is that you can do all of it or most of it simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what is you say? What would you say is your big vision? What do you see when you look ahead at what you think nursing would be like in the next, you've been there 20 something years. In the next 20 something years, what do you think you see? Because I know there have been changes in the last 20 something years. What do you think you see?
Well, I think the population in general is aging more. So I do think there's going to be a huge continued need for bedside nurses. Um, I do think there's a lack of nursing educators and teachers. So I think we're going to need more of those. And I'd like to see them have more competitive pay because I think that would help. Um, so I just think that we're going to need nurses more than ever. And even with I don't think AI, it certainly can replace bedside nurses. And I don't think it can replace nurses that do remote work either. Insurance and telemonitoring, that just can't be replaced by
Mhm.
robots, by AI. So I honestly think we're going to need nurses more than ever. And I really hope that, society as a whole will value that and, will pay us well and, the profession will continue to grow without a doubt.
Yeah, yeah. I foresee you mentioned AI. And I really think that technology is going to play a much greater role in nursing, in the way we deliver care and all of that. I read an article very recently um about what's happening in South Korea in nursing homes. And they seem to be using robots and robotics very aggressively in their care of, as part of their care. So we'll see how that goes. Um, but there is also the thing when you said we're going to need so many more nurses, and I agree. But then again, as technology blows up, and the compensation in that area becomes so much greater than it is as a nurse. I wonder how many people will actually gravitate towards, the caregiving thing as opposed to going to where money is. We'll see what happens.
I know it'll be interesting. I know.
We'll see what happens. You knew from example of so many people in your family, and you had them to lean on who, were nurses and could give you advice and stuff like that. But what advice do you give to someone who wants to be a nurse?
Um, I would say to definitely pursue it, to not give up on your dreams. I would say to always be open to learning. I mean, I always learn something new every day
Every day.
that I'm working in any role. There's always something I'm learning. Um, and I saw this quote by Ryan Serhant, who's a real estate agent in New York City. And as far as being an entrepreneur goes, it says, he said something like, quit on your best day, which of course you're not going to quit on your best day. It's kind of like a mindset where you have to keep moving forward and just know that, your best day is coming. Don't give up on your dreams. It might be a rocky road, but just to keep moving forward a little bit every day.
Hmm. And if we're talking nursing, it is a rocky road. It is a rocky road. I think I have met one nurse yet who, as much as they want to do it and as much as they enjoy it now, at some point didn't think to themselves, I don't know if I should do this.
Yeah.
I must give that, that's a thought. I know I have had that thought several times, especially as a younger nurse. And thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And then the next day, I'm right back there. I can't
Yeah.
think of anything else I want to do. So,
Aw.
one of the things we talk about a lot now, is burnout and self-care. What does self-care mean to you?
Uh, that's I struggle with it, Dale. I really do. And I'm trying to be better about it. So self-care to me is saying no to the things that I'm not really passionate about, and pursuing what I really want to do. And part of what's tough is just knowing that, right? So I
Mhm.
I like to kind of go over what I want to accomplish for the year, in relationships, family relationships, in my career, and anything that kind of falls outside of those, I'm not going to put my time there because my time is really limited. And then I would say self-care too is just the social interaction. So trying to meet up with friends, meeting up with family, spending time with one another. And then sometimes like getting a massage by myself or just going for a long walk to clear my mind. Um, but honestly, it's something that I'm always struggling with just because my time is really tight a lot of the times. So carving out that time for myself, it's a challenge. And I think any nurse will tell you the same thing.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I think I'm telling you, you have been doing this for 20 some odd years. I have done this 2024 made it 50 years that I'm a registered nurse.
Wow.
I struggled all the way through. First of all,
Yeah.
as a young nurse back in the mid 1970s, who even thought about self-care? That's not something that was even on anybody's radar. If anything, I
Right.
think that if anyone even mentioned it, it would have been in a negative kind of way, like,
Yeah.
what do you mean self-care? You're not here to be looking for you, you
Yeah.
know? And so it is a constant struggle, not to mention most of us are female, most of us are mothers. I mean, we just
Yeah.
put everything in front and everything, and then
I
like,
know.
oh, maybe I can
Uh,
get 5 minutes for me. I don't know. I know. But
uh,
but I'm glad that we're talking about it. And I typically ask everyone about it just because I really want us to articulate it. Because
mm,
especially as COVID came along and so many of us burned out, just burned out. And a lot of it had to do, yes, it was stressful. Yes, there was so many things going on that we hadn't experienced before. But at the same
mm,
time, if we had been in the habit of taking care of us, I feel like we would have had the burnout, yes, but I don't think it would have been so devastating to so many of us.
I agree.
Yeah.
Those were such tough times. And yeah, I think because we
Yeah.
were all just stuck together and
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
it was rough. I
It
don't think I got much self-care then
It
at
was
all.
well. I will tell you that in 2019, I decided for 2019, I actually semi-retired. In 2019, I decided that, okay, this is it. I'm not doing anymore. I'm going to be retired. And so I am from the Caribbean. I went home. I fortunate enough to be able to spend some time at home in the Caribbean. And I came back to the US just in I think in the middle of February, just of
Oh,
2020. And I thought, well, okay, well, this is what's going on. And for a couple of
mhm.
weeks, I watched what was going on TV, and then I eventually said, no, you cannot just sit here. So
Yeah.
I ended up going back to work, and the emotion of it all. And I don't even know if fear, I don't think I experienced fear. It was a kind of acceptance that every day I'm stepping out into this, that
Mhm.
may be something that is going to be detrimental to me, but that's what nurses do.
Mhm. Yep.
you know? But I could see it was very difficult. And it's very difficult on new nurses too, who were actually in school at that time. That was so hard.
Oh, I know. I felt bad for them and tried to support them because what a way to be thrown in.
What a way. What a way. What a way. If you could tell me in one word, what would you say is the most essential quality of a nurse to you?
It's tough to choose one word.
Give me two or even three.
Yeah, but I think I would choose the word pivot
Pivot.
because we did a lot of that during the pandemic. I think nurses are so innovative and
Yeah.
flexible. I mean, the things we did during the pandemic with running the IV tubing outside the room, and I mean, it's just endless what nurses can do.
Yeah.
And I think to myself in my career, when I get bored with one thing, I pivot and try something else. And if it doesn't fit, I pivot again. So I think that's something that, sometimes we're scared of change, but it's actually great to pivot. And it just gives you a renewed spirit. And I think it prevents burnout too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good word. I like that one. That's a really good word. And you talked about how it came, how we managed it during COVID and running the IV outside the room. And there were so many things that we did that were innovative, that we didn't think of doing before.
Yeah.
You would never have thought. I mean, if somebody had said to you prior to COVID, the IV outside of the room, run that IV, like, talking about,
I know.
you know? So many things that we did that actually opened our eyes, or should have opened our eyes to just how creative and innovative we could be when we had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was good. What would you say lastly? What would you say is your greatest achievement so far?
Mhm. So I would say surviving COVID times because that was really rough on all fronts,
Yeah,
from my family to being at the bedside. And then I would say starting my own business because I think that's something that I've always wanted to do. I have three daughters, so I love to share my entrepreneurship with them, and they help me. They're so supportive. Um, and I definitely share with them my ups and downs. I've made mistakes. I've made big mistakes. But I've learned from them, and that's what I try to share with them. We all make
yeah,
mistakes. You just have to learn from it and move
yeah,
forward.
yeah, yeah.
And then in response to that, they've been so supportive with me. My oldest daughter, she's like the first one to like my posts on Instagram, on my legal nurse Instagram. And then
Hmm.
my center daughter, this weekend, she helped me with this Google Docs thing that I was having trouble with. And then my little one, she just, gives me hugs and always brightens my day. So I just love sharing it with them, and they think it's
Yeah.
cool too.
It is cool. It is cool because I'm pretty sure that when initially, when they said mommy is a nurse, uh, that idea of what a nurse is, that tunnel vision is probably what they had. And there you are showing them that you're a nurse who's this big. I can do all of this. That's
Yeah.
huge. That's huge. That's
Oh,
huge.
thank you.
Laura, I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this conversation. It really has been a pleasure. Any last words you'd
Oh,
like to leave us with?
I'm trying to think. Well, I have a little notebook that I use as an entrepreneur.
Huh?
I write down something every day to move my business forward. I call it inspired action. And I'm actually on my third little notebook right now. So it really does help. If you just do one thing every day to move your business forward, you can accomplish so much.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a really great thing actually, because sometimes we think we have to do it all at once, and that's not one of the um, greatest books I've ever read is called Atomic Habits, and it's that
Oh,
same thing, a little one,
I
a
love
little
it
one, a
too.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you so, so much for talking to me today. I appreciate having this conversation. Really, I do.
Oh, no, thank you, Dale. And you are such an inspiration. And I hope someday we can meet up in person.
That would be lovely. That would be lovely.
So.
Thank you.